This time I bring you another premium 1-inch sensor camera, the Canon G7X Mark II, announced back in 2016. I'm especially curious to see how it compares with the Sony RX100 Mark III I've tested before. Nowadays you can get quite a similar deal on both of them, so without further ado, let's see if Canon can stand a chance. Starting with the design and build quality, I can't complain much. Other than having a bit too many screws visible on the outside, the camera is made of metal and definitely feels solid overall. Ergonomics are good, though obviously with such a small camera don't expect anything crazy about the grip. But besides not much needed exposure compensation dial that slightly gets in the way of changing shooting modes, most of the controls are fairly easy to reach, and I really dig this ring on the lens housing, which can be assigned with different functionalities. I for example set it to quickly change ISO values. It's also worth noting you can switch it between smooth and step rotation. Pressing a power button for the first time was a bit of a shock. I must admit it's rare to find non-DSLR turn on that quickly. It may seem trivial, but believe me, there are moments where having a faster startup time can make a difference. I wish the same would apply to the user interface, but it is not the most intuitive, graphically appealing one, and more importantly, I found it can sometimes struggle to handle previews. That said, it is not the end of the world, and I think with time you could get used to that. But in contrary to the Sony RX100 Mark III, Canon features a touchscreen, and unlike in some others, you can use it very freely, from browsing through settings to changing the focusing point. To me, it is not a game changer, but definitely better to have it than not, I think. Now, moving to the most crucial, image quality, the G7X Mark II delivers pretty accurate color science, a good level of detail, and the characteristic depth you would expect from a 1-inch sensor. Dynamic range is not bad either. However, you can really start to appreciate when playing with RAWs. Since this camera is already 7 years old, I won't criticize the lack of super fast processing or auto HDR found in smartphones. If you would like to watch that rant, check out my RX100 Mark VII review, for example. Anyway, back to the topic. The bright 24-100mm f1.8 to 2.8 lens gives you a bit more reach than the Sony RX100 Mark III, and some of the pictures you can see I'm really excited about. Really nice bokeh, maybe even a bit more pleasing than in Sony. But generally, I find the performance to be quite similar to that of the RX100 Mark III. I think the biggest difference is how both cameras process JPEGs. Sony seems to have slightly softer sharpening algorithms and better noise reduction. That said, side-by-side comparison would be needed to settle this for good. All in all, both devices are similarly great. But maybe not when it comes to the video quality. To be brutally honest, it is per se inadequate for today's standards. Unfortunately, the G7X Mark II does not support 4K, which I consider an absolute must for someone wanting to shoot decent looking videos. If you opt for that, you will find 4K implemented for the first time in the G7X Mark III and Sony RX100 Mark VI properly without a 5-minute recording limit. So overall, the Canon G7X Mark II proved to be a good performer and a worthy rival to the mentioned Sony RX100 Mark III. It provides with comparable build, features and picture quality, plus you get a bit more zoom. But whether you should buy it depends on the price. For example, if you could get a Sony RX100 Mark IV for the same money, I would argue it's better to have 4K even with a time limit than those extra 30mm. But that's of course just my very subjective take. That said, if your budget is a bit bigger, you might also want to look at the Panasonic LX100 Mark II with a bit bigger sensor and a Sony RX100 Mark VI with more zoom. Be sure to let me know your opinion about this camera in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, consider visiting my brand new blog, mReviewer. There you will find an exclusive gallery with high-resolution sample images you won't see anywhere else. The link is in the description. See you in the next one. Peace.